Good evening, everybody. And I guess if you're watching this later, welcome. As you can see, I'm running solo this evening, so we're going to have some fun. I'm a little hot in my ears right there. First off, Brian, I see you out there. Welcome. Thank you for joining us already. And to anybody else that's going to be chiming in, welcome. So, obviously, without having Adam or Babe along tonight, for various reasons, they're not here, and that's quite all right. We can run this thing solo. We can have people hop in here and we can talk about different things. But it also allows, well, first off, it takes away a little bit of the fun because we don't have the friendly banter that I can't do by myself. But that's all right. It lets us get straight to the point and dive into what we're going to be talking about tonight for a little bit. I was hoping one of them could have joined me because it makes what we're going to talk about a little bit more fun to argue the point back and forth, I guess you could say. But it allows for other people, you, the viewer, to hop in here and give your comments and your views on this whole situation as well. And so because of that, I think for the sake of time and everything, I think we're going to hop right into what we're going to talk about, which, as you noted by the topic here that we're going to be discussing, where are all the underwater habitats? And what I meant and this was something, Babe and me talked a little bit about this too, I got 6 we're going to go over. Is proposed underwater habitats. Some may still happen. Some probably aren't going to happen, and kind of go over those. I've rated them, in my opinion, least likely to most likely to actually succeed and happen. I left ASC off there. We talk enough about ASC. I wanted this to be other ones out there because obviously we're going to succeed. So I didn't want it just to be a complete blowout from that standpoint. But what I did want to talk about was these ones out here. And the first one that gets brought up was actually Babe. He gave this one to me last minute here. So we'll just hop in. It's the ocean spiral. Well, the ocean spiral, it's a Japanese design, and basically what it is a giant spiral. It's got like a floating living space at the very top. I think it says like 500 meters in circumference or something along those lines, and then it goes like super deep underwater using like geothermal and a bunch of other things to power it. But the crazy thing about it is that it's supposed to house about 5,000 people, so it's a huge undertaking. And due to that, they said the cost on that thing is going to be around $25 billion to get it built. And since this was proposed back 11 years ago in 2014, I rated the odds that this is actually going to happen as 0 to almost nothing. I mean, there's so many other projects out there that are requiring a whole lot less than this, and they haven't happened. For something like this to happen, I think is just it's grasping a little bit. And when you're doing research on this, the guy who came up with this idea, he's had a bunch of other far out there ideas as far as space stations and moon bases and stuff along those lines. He's obviously more of a designer, and he's known for that type of stuff, his different unique designs, and gets his name out there for that versus the actual feasibility of what he's doing. Now, not saying you couldn't build this, but I think the funds and the desire for that at this point in time just are not there. So that's why this is bottom on the list. Yeah, probably not going to happen. Not going to happen. But the next one up on the list, for those of us who have looked at underwater habitats and have dreamed about staying underwater, this one is probably most of you have seen it before, and it's Poseidon's Undersea Resorts. And this one has been around for quite a while, and it garnered lots of attention back in the day. This one is brought by Bruce Jones, who also back in the early 90s and the 2000s had U.S. Submarines, which was like a private submarine company that, now I don't know if it's the same company or he started a new one, but it's Triton Submarines. So he's well known for that. He's had a bunch of different designs and different ideas over the years. Him and I actually shot a couple of emails back in the late 90s, I think it was, maybe early 2000s, back before even this had come out there. So this was a projected um, large underwater hotel. And as you can see by the designs there, there's individual rooms and it had a shaft that went up to the surface and all kinds of gorgeous. And they had actually, they had pictures that they looked like they were breaking ground on some areas at different points in time in the history. This was first proposed all the way back in 2008, I think it was. So, quite a while ago. And at the time, it had a costly, they factored in that they figured for somebody to stay there for a whole week is around $15,000, but that included like 4 nights up on the land and stuff along those lines. So you're only getting like 2 nights underwater for $15,000. So it was a little pricier, but still, there has tons of people, myself included, had signed up on the mailing list to find out more information and it'd be known when this is going to come out. It was supposed to be in Fiji. Like I say, they showed land, they showed where this is going on. They had tons of stuff. The website's still up. You can still go to the website to this day, but there has been nothing since a tweet in 2014. So again, 11 years, and it's been zero radio silence. So the likelihood this is going to happen is very slim. With Bruce Jones, he's getting older. His focus is on submersibles and that industry, more exploration and stuff along those lines, where this is kind of taking a back seat to it all. So the chances are that this is going to happen is probably non-existent as well, unfortunately. But I think that for a lot of us, it definitely spurred on that imagination of, hey, this is, first off, it's doable. It's gorgeous. I mean, this is what people, when they think about staying underwater, this is kind of what they want. So that was an unfortunate series of events that whether it was, I think when you start researching what happened, they said, it was issues with funding, obviously, because something like this is going to be millions and millions of dollars. I would argue probably the scale of this thing here was probably $100-200 million to get this built. Plus, then you're in Fiji, so it's premium land, all the regulations and all that kind of stuff. I think there's a bunch of those issues that ran into play earlier on that pushed the dates back on when this is supposed to happen. So because of that, probably not going to happen. So the next one we will discuss here, and I want to preface this real quick. If anybody is out there and they're watching, I would be curious if you had any interactions with any of these, what because there may be people out there, especially in this world, that maybe was involved in this in some aspect or another. I have talked to people who were in some designing areas of some of this stuff. So I do know people are out there. They do talk. I'd love to hear your stories on what you know about why some of this stuff hasn't happened, or if it's just, still moving forward and it's going to happen, we just don't know about it type of thing. Let me know. So the next one, probably not a lot of people know about it. It kind of came up real fast and died real fast. We think died real fast. We haven't heard anything. But this one, it's called the Argonetta. And basically, as you can see, it's very rudimentary. But this came out from Ivan Francis. And actually, him and me spoke quite a bit a couple of years ago. In 2021, he was, I think, the first aquanaut when Jules Undersea Lodge came out of quarantine and was able to start having people. I think he was one of the first, or maybe even the first aquanaut after that. And his experience staying at Jules Undersea Lodge spurred him on to start this project of building basically kind of what ASC was looking at too, is, shipping container design type of design there where, it's still situated at 1 atmosphere. And the idea was, it's a small footprint. It's a cheaper, I hate using the word cheaper, but it's a more cost-effective build. And so therefore you could get it out in the water. You could get it underwater a whole lot easier, a whole lot quicker, and without as much capital to it. But, talking to him, he was under, for whatever reason, I never did understand why, that he was under a time crunch of when he needed to get this accomplished by. And so he came up with this idea, obviously got inspiration in 2021, and the website, which is still up and running to this day, advertised coming summer 2022. Well, obviously now we're coming up in summer 2025, and there's been nothing about this. He's still out there, but his activity is not on this. So again, this one still could possibly happen just because of the low barrier on the cost and because it wouldn't take much to get this going. I just don't think the interest is there from him and his partner. But he could surprise us, and it could pop out of nowhere, anywhere at any point in time too. So this one, the other two, I'm pretty sure are done. And this one I'm pretty sure is done as well. But there's probably like a 10 to 15% chance this could still come out in some measure or another. But yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people haven't heard about this one, but I will. I wish I should have saved the links for it, but it's Be Aquatic, I think, is what the website for this one is. So if you want to go check it out, they got a little video on there. There's not a lot of information on it, but it's a cool guy regardless. Hopefully he hasn't gave up that dream and it still does. Something comes out because it is cool, and I think it's very doable. Unlike a lot of these that we're addressing here. So the next one is another one that anybody in this space is very aware of. I feel that they've been around for a while as well. Has a lot of social media stuff, even though they've kind of drawn back on that. But it's Planet Ocean Underwater Hotel. Tony Webb, he came up with this idea. Probably prior to this, but he patented this design in 2015, so 10 years ago. And so he had been working on that before this, but that's when the patent came through and he really started going full bore. He's been involved in a bunch of aerospace stuff and other things in the past, so he had a little bit more clout to him. And he's still working on this to this day. I've had several phone calls with him over the years. And try to word my words wisely here. And the difference between this and the other ones, you can see, it seems like it borrows a lot from Poseidon Undersea Resorts into the fact where, he was figuring, and he's figuring, I guess, the pricing for staying the night there is anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000 a night. So roughly about the same price as Poseidon. But the difference is that is underwater, whereas Poseidon was part of it. Most of it was above the water versus underwater. So again, he's got some Poseidon was, it was stationary, is where it was going to go. His is more of a modular approach to the thing. And this image here is actually an outdated image. He's got newer versions out there, but this is probably the one most people know from his work that he's been working on. But it's more of a mobile underwater habitat. And when I had talked to him, he had locations where he was prepared to start building. He was just waiting on some clearances from different places. Since then, that was a couple of years ago. Since then, his website has changed from where they're planning on putting it. And it looks like he's sought different locations. But as of late, he's projecting November of this year. So I think in the Caribbean. So maybe he knows something that, the rest of us don't know, but that's what's being said as of right now. Is this one still could come. I think that this one gets a little bit more legitimacy because of the connections that he has had and has. I think that he's been around the world. He's spoken with some different people, and so there's a possibility this one transpires. I think what he's got going against him is he is, like a lot of us in this thing, we're getting older and without stuff happening. And again, this is an expensive endeavor because it is so large. Again, he's looking at, a couple $100 million to get this going, which is a large chunk of change to come off of for some of this stuff that isn't tried and true on this scale. So he's got a lot going against him, but he's got a lot going for him too. I wouldn't go 50-50 on this one. Probably more 40% chance that this comes about. And even then, I know there's people in the comments already saying that's probably a little too high. But I think his passion's there. I think he wants this and is doing what he can to try to make it happen. It's just the state of, with a lot of these, getting the finances in line in order to do that. So again, another one we'll see. That's 4 out of the 6 we're going to talk about tonight. So let's get into some ones that are a little bit more in the news. Proteus. Again, This one definitely people know just because it's Fabien Cousteau, grandson of Jacques Cousteau, and his project that he's been working on for a while now. Um, this one really first popped up in 2020, so almost 5 years ago. So in comparison to all these other ones, pretty recent. Um, and just like Planet Ocean or Water Hotel, the designs have changed since then too. There aren't any really great images of the new design, so I just went with this old one out there to have something that's a little bit prettier on the screen here. But he's estimating $135 million cost on this. What differs this from all the other ones is all the other ones on the list are just the everyday person is in mind. You may have to be a scuba diver for some of them, but most of them it's just, hey, you want to go take a vacation, and this is where you go. You hang out, you just chill. This is more of a scientific research habitat, and he refers to it almost like the International Space Station underwater, where it's a bunch of different nations come together, do scientific research, and it's a modular approach where you can add on to it, which then, of course, cuts down on cost. I think that I met him last year, and him and I spoke briefly about this. And as I just said, the biggest issue out there for all these things is funding. And it's one of those things where, he has been talking and been in different groups and been speaking at different events trying to raise support. And he's a Cousteau. So that name is synonymous with underwater research, underwater habitats, all that kind of stuff. So I think that he's got a huge chance of making this happen. I know that he was partnering with some different industries and some different people to get this happening. So we'll see. This is supposed to be down the Caribbean, I think it is as well. So not too far from here. He has been shooting to start building next year. I don't know if that's still on his timetable. What's going to be by funding, but that was one of the dates he had thrown out here most recently was the goal for next year to have something in the water moving forward on that. So we'll see. I'd love to see this. I think once again, just because it's a Cousteau more than anything, the guy's really cool. He seemed very down to earth. I was very impressed beginning to meet him, even though I made a jerk of myself in front of him, but that's neither here nor there. So I say this one I feel has a very high chance of succeeding. Is it a lot of it? Some of the discussion with some of these people is this more for clickbait to, help his nonprofit and to help his name out there versus is it legitimate? I think it's legitimate. I think that some of the people are out there for just get their name in the news. But I think that he really wants to make this happen. I think this is part of his grandfather's legacy and him being able to move this forward. And a lot of this actually came from him spending 30 days underwater in Sea Lab back. Man, it's probably been close to 10 years ago that he did that. So, this would be a saturation dive. So for you out there that don't understand, that basically is once you're down there until you're able to come back up, and it's not, you can't just come and go to the surface like you could anywhere else without getting too technical in here. So that's why this is more the scientific community and not the everyday person. But then that brings us to the last one on our list, who is the big one making the most waves out there that everybody's talking about these days, and Deep in their Sentinel program. Deep is an interesting, and they may be listening to this because in past times I know they have said they have listened to our program before. The guys over in the UK there at Deep, they popped up out of kind of nowhere in 2023. I remember the first time hearing something about that. Their website was just like nothing on it. It's like, and then boom, here they are. Their chances of succeeding are very high. They are supposed to be dropping, I think, later this year or early next year, what's called the Vanguard, which is basically a very R&D habitat to test out some of the principles in there. They have got a well-oiled industry over there working on this. Um, and then the Sentinel, as you see here, in some level, they're shooting for 2027. So very aggressive goals there for that. And then by 2030, they want a whole permanent habitat. And then 2050s, they got a nice timeline they're going. I think that the reason they hold the highest chance for me out of all these is because I feel they're doing it right. I think they're doing it the way we've been saying you need to do it. So you're welcome, deep guys out there, if you're listening. No, but they're starting off with the idea, and they're starting off with this small version of it to test the beds, and they're growing off that foundation instead of starting huge with a $300 million project, which obviously this may cost that in R&D and stuff along those lines, but the habitat itself, instead of just starting off that and throwing this thing in the water, they're starting off small, testing it and building from there. And the fact that they're modular, they can grow that habitat as need be. The interesting thing about them too is, even though their focus is the scientific research, so that's again another saturation dive, they can, because of the design, they could have that as a single atmosphere, have a submarine come down, dock on that, and you could be down there and take a luxury vacation, because it'd be a higher price one, obviously, but you could be a wealthy person and use it as a vacation location as well. So they've got a hybrid approach there going on there. They're crossing the T's and dotting the I's of everything that you need in underwater habitats. So I very much like what they're doing, and I feel they have a very good chance of making this happen. Again, some people would argue that this is all publicity thing for their business model, that they're working on other stuff over there too. Totally possible. I guess time will tell. I guess might know by the end of this year whether these forecasts come true and they're actually moving forward on something or not. I would love to be able to, Dawn, can't pronounce her last name. I don't want to butcher it. Let me put it that way. She was at an event there where Fabian was at as well last year, and I was able to talk to her for a little bit. And she's with them, and we're a guy from Oceaneering, Fabian and me were all staying around talking and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things out there in the underwater habitat world, and I think Deep has got a lot of it covered. And I am very hopeful that between Proteus, Deep, ourselves, I didn't put some other people on here that I could have in retrospect, thinking about, my friend Martin over in Turkey, his projects. There's some other different projects going on over in Europe as well. A lot of different stuff going on. We're running into a situation where Sea Lab is end of life and needs to be replaced. Jules, even as great as it is, it's an older habitat as well, and we need something more updated for that as well. So there are needs out there, and we have talked about quite a bit, but that's pretty much what I've got for you guys on that whole thing. So what's your take on the whole thing? What do you think? Who is your, do you agree with my views on all this, as far as, hey, this is the hierarchy? Is there ones I missed? There's ones out there that you think, no, these guys actually got it together and you didn't talk about them, or this is one I was thinking about that I haven't heard anything about in years? Please, I'd love to maybe do another phone. I'd love to contact some of these people too, and maybe do another follow-up with some more updated information on this as well. So as always, do your thing, comment on this thing, wherever you're watching this. We're on X, we're live on X, we're live on YouTube, live on Facebook. And of course, then we split this up into reels for TikTok and everything else too. So do your thing, like it wherever it's at, comment, share it, help us spread the love of underwater habitats, help us do this. But I will put this, let me just do a little, without Adam being here, my flow is completely off. One thing I'm going to model, my one atmosphere living. So a lot of you may or may not know about this. I have talked about it, but one atmosphere living, it encompasses what ASC is trying to do is with underwater habitats is making it one atmosphere living. So one thing I want to do is I wanted to have a brand out there per se that wasn't strictly underwater habitat related. I wanted it to be about the working, the living in a one atmosphere environment, and that almost like a life, a brand per se on that. So that's something we're working on. We've got some simplified designs with your logo on the website right now. You can go check out there. We're working on some other designs that are coming down the pike. So check it out. Also, you can go to the website, atlantisseacolony.com. That's where all the good stuff happens. Hasn't really updated much. Like as I've said before, kind of pulling back in 2025 as far as information going out there. But definitely go on there. Where all the information happens at is our social medias, which is on there, but also our Discord community. We've got a very vibrant Discord community where we always have interesting conversations in there. There's some unique people in there. I would definitely go check that out. Link is obviously on our website. Another link that's on our website is to our Colonize the Ocean podcast. And it's a podcast I do pretty much solely. This VOD turns into this live stream turns into a podcast as well that comes out. But every week on Monday, I have a short that comes out talking about a topic. On Fridays, I have an AI-based podcast come out that is on some underwater habitat thing, whether it's a person, a proposed habitat, whatever. So those comes out. And then right now I'm running for the next, I think 2 months or something like that on Wednesdays, frequently asked questions. So you get the benefit of a minimum of 3 podcasts a week from that. So you're getting your money's worth since you're not paying for anything anyway. So I would go check it out, subscribe. I would love to get more viewers on there. I'd love to get those rankings up there and make it more of a viable aspect of what ASC does. So check that out. And, there's different ways to support us. Like I said, social media back on our website, check that out, sharing it, liking it, following us on any of your preferred platforms. That's obviously a great way to do that and helps us tremendously, even though we don't post much out there anymore. But another way is hopping over to our Patreon, becoming a Patreon member. You do it for $5 a month. We've got several guys that are involved with that and have been for quite a while, and I cannot thank them enough. We got Brian, who's in here at the very beginning. We've got Martin, Babe, who's not here tonight, Adam, who's not here tonight, and my dad. So, obviously a lot of us very close to the vest and stuff like that, but we've got some very guys that have been doing this for quite a while that are very much involved, and I cannot thank them enough. And so if you'd like to be involved in that, I definitely put out a monthly video, which is actually getting ready to come out this week, to those guys talking about what's going on that I don't really share with the rest of the people. They're kind of behind the scenes thing. I'm always looking for different ways to add value to that and to encourage people to go there. It's not tons of money, and it's not intended to be, but it definitely helps take care of, some of the operational things that we're trying to do, as well as fund marketing and different things along those lines along the way. So if you share the interest and you feel that what we're doing is the way of tackling this and you want to be involved, I definitely think Patreon is a great way of doing that. Obviously, even though I'm not a Patreon member, I put more money into it than that they do, this type of thing, and it's not an argument about that. But I have no fun in life because all my money goes into trying to make ASC happen. And I have no complaints about that whatsoever. This is my baby. This is what I wanted to do for a long time. I believe that the ocean is the future. I believe that what we're doing is important. And I believe that we are maybe a little ahead of this wave here, this future wave, but we are on the right path. And I would love for everybody to jump on board and be able to say, hey, I was part of that. I helped them in the early stages. I was a founding Patreon or a founding person that helped them out with this. So go check that out. And with that being said, guys, thank you very much to anybody that's checking this out, that's watching this later. You are awesome. I appreciate you. And I would hope to hear from you. Shoot me a message. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you don't like. And we'll talk to you later. Thank you.